because I'm not talking about things that are controversial, in as much as we always talk about controversial things. You have Blessed is the Man, the first three Psalms of Vespers, which on a big feast are sung. I think we mentioned before that the way that we do it here at St. Mary's is nice because we do the entire first three Psalms, but it's not the way that you would do it in a Greek monastery or a Greek church at all, because these would be done on a big feast where it's specified in the Minaean that the first kathisma is chanted, in which case you would do the first three psalms chanted long. We always do the first three psalms chanted, or kind of chanted and chanted straight and chanted more elaborately, which is more, I guess, a Russian way of doing things. But even then, I'll have to look into that. So normally you should just read the first nine psalms in their entirety and not sing anything. So on Saturday Vespers, at least according to my knowledge. But so that's there. It's a very long version, 21 minutes, as we said. So we have the brief version, which is I think 9 minutes. Maybe if we go and do that one, you'll see the difference in terms of brief versus slow. And then this is the abbreviated version, so there are longer versions of this. Then you also have the hymns for this Saturday, this Sunday, the Fathers of the First Ecumenical, Sunday of the Holy Fathers. Is it the First Ecumenical Council or?
Seventh, this one says.
Yeah, seventh. Okay. So, and that's the Iconoclastic Ecumenical Council, deciding for the icons instead of iconoclasm. So, what I'd like to do probably is maybe go to the Psalm. That way we can start with the Psalm again. Ground ourselves in the words of David, and then we'll move on to maybe looking at some of the things for Saturday. I don't know if we'll get through that much of those, so we'll see how quickly they go because they're not simple. I'll just put it there. They're not simple by any means. So, hello.
Hello. I'm too early.
That's fine.
You want to hang with the JV?
You can hang out.
We're the V, not the JV.
The JV. Man.
Yeah, we're the
we're
varsity.
the V now.
Yeah.
Huh? We're the varsity.
Yep. So, Blessed is the Man. I'll give you a moment to look at it.
Do you have an extra?
No.
You can look up this one.
Yeah, I printed out 3 copies. I started printing out all sorts of copies. And I was like, I know we have 3 people. So,
yes.
Yeah. And I have my computer. So, any questions before we begin? I'll give you guys a chance to look at it briefly.
When we're talking plagial fourth, is we have to learn a different scale? Or do you?
It's the regular. It's the regular Pagel 4.
We did that before.
This one, since it's longer, it'd be, as it says, intonation number 26 on that list that we had.
The formal.
So, second line, we got some stuff going on.
Oh yes. Saturn.
Yeah. So.
I haven't learned the scales yet at all. It's going to be the last thing I'll ever learn. I'm sure.
It's the hard chromatic, right?
Yeah, hard chromatic.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll do verse 1 and 2. That'd be good for me. We'll see how they go.
Then you're back. Oh no, wait.
Yeah,
Okay, then you're back to the diatonic.
Yep, then back to diatonic on the end of the second line.
Is that what that's for?
That's what this is for. No, that's what that's for.
Yeah. Then,
Yeah.
And
That's the last funky thing like
those
that.
represent the endings and the beginnings.
Well, it's
something.
several places.
Oh yeah, it happens, but I mean, that's the end of that verse.
Yeah.
There's nothing else going on really.
so this is all for you anyway, Sister Bill. But that's essentially what it is that they're looking at and changing from.
Yes, you see little Saturn tells you to go back to the diatonic, and then this is the hard chromatic scale. Little Saturn.
And so
I'm trying to teach myself.
By teaching someone else, it does make hopefully more sense.
Hopefully.
So how's it going?
Sorry, I thought I was on time.
Oh, no problem. The so this is the intermediate class. So we've essentially, do we want to do this on Nipavu or just try it sight reading for the moment?
Try sight reading.
Okay,
Please.
I'm fine with doing that. If we fail utterly,
Well, if there aren't too many
Okay.
Octave changes are crap.
If you want to, since it's the intermediate, I only printed out 3 copies. So if you want to
That's
see the
fine.
music, you can jump around, and John's got one in
Or
the
you
middle.
can sit next to John and
I don't
So-
think this is the kind of thing you can study, you just have to do it.
So I.
Yeah, different people learn different ways.
Neagies. So we'll do it kind of slow. Blessed is the man that has. That's up to you,
What's
right?
up to?
That hath not walked in the counsel. Do you want me to do that? Or nope. Counsel. Says to thee.
Oh, you're doing hard.
We're starting
We're hard chromatic
I
tonight.
know, I
Yeah.
didn't see it. It's so faint in this, you don't see it.
Yeah.
I know, but we just talked about it.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but
And I
there-
forgot about
It
it.
comes up in other places.
Conveniently
too.
on my page it's all in red, so it's kind of obvious, but I apologize. We'll get computer stands for the, or computers for the stands at some
yes, yes.
point. So, everybody, you want me to go over that, or?
No,
Okay, cool. So, I counsel of the ungodly. So we're still in hard chromatic there. So, let me just sing that line real quick. The counsel of the ungodly.
And that's the Nick wiggle at the end. There's not a note there. It's just-
That's not written, yeah.
Or
So.
I think we call it the Nick flutter.
Yeah, or a flip or something like that,
Yes.
yeah. But it's predictable, so that's good.
Yes.
So let's sing that from the Council of the Ungodly. In the council of the ungodly, nor stood in the way of sinners. That one right there because of the rhythm.
Oh, that's right.
Nurse.
There's a
Says-
chorus in
Oh,
there.
True.
yeah.
Doo-doo-doo.
Those gorgons are
You
nasty.
don't have
Yep.
to,
So,
yeah. Okay.
That would be.
let's start at the beginning of that line. Nor stood, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the pestilent. Alleluia. Let's look at the end for a second. The one thing, if you notice, it goes up to Ga, which is important here because we kind of change out of Plagal of the fourth mode into the third mode, essentially, if you get that.
Where?
First line on the second page. Nor sat in the seat. So it kind of hits Ga, which
Right.
we never see. So it kind of starts to borrow from other scales, if that makes any sense, or other tones. Does that make sense to anyone?
No, it's good, it's good.
You know you
but
lost
would
me.
you
Someone
need
got-
to know that to sing it.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of limit.
I'm just getting excited, but no.
Yeah.
I know.
I want people to be
I
excited
know,
too.
this is theory, this is
Um,
theory.
no, so if you remember,
I just wanted to know.
no, you don't need to know this at all. It will not give you theosis. It will not establish salvation for you at all.
Well,
It
But
may
it-
actually
it's gonna
hinder.
take a
I
lot.
don't know.
Theosis, yes.
This is a
Lot
stumbling
more than
block,
this,
maybe.
I think.
So don't get bogged down.
Basically, since he's teaching the theory, he gets theosis.
Yes.
By your prayers, I attain salvation. So the Norsat. So if you remember, Tone 3, at least the ones that we were doing, was ga ga vi ke ke vi ga vu pa ga. So it's always right in there. Norsat in the seed. That's kind of how Tone 3 would go, but we just get it very briefly there, and then come out of it after the pestilent, right back into Alleluia. And you can ignore that completely, but keep it in the back of your head because it does happen in all sorts of hymns. Once they get more fancy. So, and this is considered fancy.
When you sang Hallelujah, your voice fluctuated where the flat is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's supposed to, it's a style thing, or do you?
Yep. That's oral tradition of me. and hopefully there's
So
a
I'll just-
hopefully there's a
Next
lineage
I'll put
that I'm
NOT,
learning from
next oral
too.
tradition.
There's a lineage that I'm learning from too.
No, I didn't know, and I'm
yeah.
not being picky. I just-
Well, when you go to Greece, you can tell them this is part of the Nick oral tradition.
Yeah.
And they're like,
No,
oh, of course.
I did tell them. I told Bill Alice about your class. And
Okay.
he said it's wonderful. He said, "But are you doing it in Greek?" I said, "No, it's in English." They have it in English. It was just that shocked. Everyone was shocked. It's in English. I'm sorry.
I went to a church in it was in very high up in Maryland, and I went there for a feast day for Saint Nectarios, and they saw me. I was reading the music, but then he pointed to me. He was like, "You do the next one." And I was like, "No." He was like, "No, you do it." And I was like, "No, I can't read Greek." And he was like, "How, what?"
Yeah, they
And
can't
he had
figure
no
it out.
idea because he had never met anyone that only learned in English, and he was an English speaker. You know, he was native from America, and he was so confused. He was like, "Then how did you learn? Like, if you didn't learn in Greek, how could you learn in
Yes,
English?"
it's true because
So
it's very new to them.
it was very surprising. Back to the music. So the seat. In the seat of the pestilent, Alleluia. Does pestilent make any sense to people?
Does it make any sense?
The
Yeah.
whole
As
phrase
in,
sat,
we know what the word means.
sat in the seat of the
Mm-hmm.
pest. And that whole phrase is very difficult.
It's normally wicked. Does it mean the same thing as wicked?
Yeah, in the
Yes,
seat.
it's the
Yeah, in
same
the seat of
thing.
the ungodly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Different translations for various things. So, pestilent. So pestilent. The hardest part there is the fact that you have the little under lent. You have that syndesmos, the little connector symbol,
Mhm.
little squiggle. Everyone, do you recall what that is?
Yes.
Okay. So the way that I would do that is pestilent, kind of the little flutter around, but it for the sake of time or for the sake of easiness, it's lent ali. Just a little bounce underneath. Let's do Norsat in the seat of the pestilent. Ne agiem Norsat in the seat of the pestilent Alleluia.
singing another
No, that's
note
what,
that I
that's
don't
what I was
see
talking
it.
about.
That's- yeah.
That's
That's
the
Nick
style.
Flutter.
That's a
It's
style.
That's
That's a style
style,
mark.
stylistic marks.
Mhm.
Which
That's like a St. Catherine's,
Yeah.
Maybe.
we put all those endings on, even though
in the beginners class coming up
Yeah,
next,
just
I wouldn't do
They're not
that.
written
It would
in
just
the
I would just read it straight. But because the intermediates have progressed,
We've
to
accommodated ourselves to your style.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. When you're doing it without me even asking, it's kind of like nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of dangerous, but nice.
Yes.
So that's reading in between the lines. Should we do the full first verse a little bit faster?
Yeah, whatever you want.
Okay, whatever.
Nay again, blessed is the man that had not walked. Okay, let's do that one. That had the blessed is the man was awesome. So we'll ignore that and keep going from that hath not walked. The man that hath not walked in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the pestilent. Hallelujah. All right. How was that? Compared to what we've been singing, at least for you three.
Yes.
Everybody else is probably craziness. Is it
That is still a killer.
is it good? Is it does
Yeah.
it make sense?
Fine.
Because it is a little bit more melismatic
Mhm.
on pretty much everything, longer. So, and we'll go through it again and again and again over the weeks. So, I leave it up to your discretion. Would you like to do verse 2?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Well, that was easy. On
The tribe has
Nipahu
spoken.
or on sight singing. I know what Patricia's gonna say.
Yeah, I hate Nipahu.
Yeah, I
It's up to you.
Well, there's no scale changes, so that's goes on a low cat, right?
yeah, it goes down a low, okay.
It's on.
Oh, Nepal.
Just joking.
Oh, it is.
Um,
Okay, let's try it, sight reading.
On sight reading?
Sure.
Okay. Once we do get back to Peggle first, we'll go back to Nipahu. Just to let you know, we're doing it. We're going back.
These are like for fun anyway. So.
This is just put you at ease. For when
To
we get
lure you into a false sense of security.
this is like this
Oh,
needle's
no,
not gonna
it works
hurt.
if that's the case.
This needle's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt. Just look away. No, verse number 2. Yeah, it's fine. 1, 2. But his will is rather in the law of the Lord, and in his law. Nope.
No, that's not right.
Law.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine if you do it the other way. It's
Well, why is
it's
that?
not correct.
Because
Well, because there's a going here.
Okay.
The
So it
going and the
shortens.
little dot.
I
It shortens
don't
it.
know where else we did it.
Yeah.
No, it's there too.
Yeah.
Is there like a real one like that?
In the
Oh no, right
first
here,
verse,
yeah. See,
after
there's no
sinners.
going on, so it's.
Mhm.
But here it's.
Yeah.
You don't get time to do that little flip.
Yeah, because the law is harsh and sharp and
Like sinners.
yeah, and not salvific by itself. So we cut it off. Long will he meditate day and night. Alleluia. Okay, so how'd that go?
Better.
We'll sing it faster.
That was easier than the first one.
Yeah, we'll sing it
Yes,
faster.
because there's now the pattern.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when you get the Alleluia, that's like, okay.
Well, again, yeah, like with the other song. Yeah, with the other song. And I don't
Right.
think this one changes.
Oh, is that right?
I'll have to
So
look.
you've learned half of it already.
Yeah.
This one stays pretty diatonic throughout, which helps.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, the second one. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
none of this like.
Oh,
back and forth
it'll
with
change.
chromatic
Oh,
back and
it'll
forth.
change.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's
Uh,
number 2.
You have been warned.
Once we get to 3. No, but the
That's a sharp.
just
Yeah,
before
that's
we go to the middle of verse number 2, because I want to just highlight something from an oral standpoint.
There's all kinds of stuff going on.
Blessed is the man. Who's the man?
Sorry.
Jesus.
Christ. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is about Christ and everything, and we won't go through an exegesis of the entire psalm because that would take too long. But his will is rather in the law of the Lord, and his law will he meditate day and night. The one thing, day and night is awesome at at all times, but it's also in the good times and the bad times. The day being when everything is happy and bright and shiny, and the night when everything is dark and you have no idea where anything is and how things are going in front of you. So not only just at all times, but also it's easy to pray in the good times. It's hard to pray during the bad times, or actually vice versa. Sometimes it's hard to pray during the good times because you don't need God, because everything's going fine.
But there's a
And-
caveat.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 28.
What is it? What is Deuteronomy 28?
Well, the blessings are kind of short and the curses are kind of specific.
Oh yeah,
If
Moses'
you don't do
final
this, if you don't
instructions
do
to the
that,
children
yeah.
of Israel.
Yeah. So day and night at all times, and in the good times and the bad times. Is that I'll be on your side forevermore? Something, some song from back in the day. Verse number 2. Let's do it a little faster. And the one thing in the law of the Lord, that one, in the law of the Lord, because we have the Lord. It doesn't make any sense. Well, we should really re-articulate when we see that Eson, because we have another note there. It's not just being held from the we're re-articulating, but also there's a little Lord kind of little things there. Not necessary.
Opportunity to.
Yeah, any opportunity to flutter is good. But verse number 2. But his will is rather in the law of the Lord. Nay, again. But his will is rather in the law of the Lord, and in his law will he meditate day and night. Alleluia. Cool. So the Alleluia, awesome. The rest of it is also really good.
But it wasn't awesome, like the Hallelujah.
It was still very good.
Yes, it was still good.
And God created things very good. I mean,
Yes,
it's
yes.
godlike.
That's
No.
what it was for.
So in his law will he so this I think we'll kind of go through these. I don't know if we'll do 2 every week. That might be too much. But we'll see how they go.
Too much, really? That's tough.
It depends. It depends how we're going, and what scale changes we get. If you look, I mean, at the
I
number
know,
3.
Yeah. It's left chromatic. And
Yeah.
Number 1 was
Mhm.
so.
Yeah. It gets a little tricky.
Dense.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
And there's more and more word painting. And why have the heathen raged? Oh man. music will rage.
There will be raging.
Yeah.
And there will be changes.
Okay.
And you will rage.
So I give you the option Sunday of the Fathers or Tegel of the First.
Sunday of the Fathers. I vote for that.
Okay, we have one vote.
That's fine.
Well,
I wouldn't.
they're not going to be here on Saturday.
That's, well then,
But
I
I will
guess
be
we
here
should
on
do it.
Saturday.
Okay.
So
I'd
we'll do
appreciate
it
at least a
since
run
we'll,
through.
Sure.
we'll do it since we won't be here.
Let's do it.
That's
Mhm.
why.
Okay.
Did you?
So again, we only have 3 copies. And
Yeah.
well, actually, we only have 2 for the first thing. So this is Plagal of the second mode, which we haven't talked about, and I'd rather not talk about it. I'd rather you do it.
Okay,
from,
so here's the one we're just gonna do it. Huh?
This is just from oral how the tone goes. If you want to know, it's from Pa goes up to high Pa. It's 6, 24, 12, 6, 24, which is essentially half step, 1.5 steps, half step, whole step, half step, 1.5, half step. If that makes any sense. So we'll sing through.
So what did you say? 6, 24, 12?
6, 24.
Oh, 6, 24, 12. Okay.
Yeah, 6,
6,
20.
24, 12. That's like, what the heck's that?
No.
That's nothing.
Doesn't make any sense.
6,
Yeah,
20,
yeah.
and then
So this
4,
is,
and
you said
then
hard
12.
chromatic. This is hard
Hard
chromatic.
chromatic, yeah.
Yeah, right here.
Yes.
That's the.
That's,
Yeah, okay.
Only
that's,
Jeff understands it.
Well, I thought it said 624, so I thought it was like pulling up this whole new scale.
What's it's the math? He's got the math
It's
under
got to be the
control.
math because otherwise, like,
So
620 or 624, it's
yeah, and
confusing.
yeah, and all these numbers again, it's theory. They only established these numbers based upon what people were chanting. Not it wasn't. Hey, we should do a scale
Right,
that's
yeah, let's do
624.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
What are you
Based on
guys
the
saying?
golden
Let me
mean.
write it down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just so we're all clear. So this one is from Pa. So Pa vugadi kezoni pani zoke digavu Pa. So that's the Arab. When everyone thinks that Byzantine chant music sounds Arabic, that's
what they
because that's because of this
the
guy.
other way around.
Hmm?
They based their music on the
Exactly. Yeah, they took scales.
On the Byzantine
Yeah.
Arabic.
And whether these came from Turkish music or not, I'm not even going to venture into that whole
Turks
thing.
said, well, that maybe they called it, the Arabs called it maqam,
Yeah.
and the Turks call it something, but it's really, their scale is Byzantine.
Yeah.
And
So-
that's what
So this, we'll sing the glory, and then just so that we look right at the beginning of the hymn, we switch right into soft chromatic, if you notice. And it's not really going to change very much. It just helps us actually sing it in a certain way, which we'll talk about. And then on acclaim, we go back into hard chromatic. And this is this is not the most difficult hymn because there's much more difficult versions.
Yeah.
But it's not trivial by any means.
No.
So most
You can explain about the nay?
right.
Nay?
So ne.
Where's that?
We're here.
Oftentimes
First word.
Oh, nah.
that's kind of a way of transitioning from pa to whatever note you want to do. So instead of going, this is your starting note, glory, they want to kind of go ne glory. So it's that, but it's also part of the ananeske. What is the prayer? It's the prayer, save, O Lord King, yea, save Almighty King. And what ends up happening with a lot of these intonations and little nonsense syllables, they're taken from that prayer, which is ananes, keneanes, something. And so it's just a prayer in Greek, so they kind of split it up so that even these nonsense syllables are a part of some larger prayer that if you sing the full cycle of services, over time you end up singing all these little things. And so even
Put the prayer together.
yeah, you put the
Okay.
prayer. It's like a
Yeah.
jigsaw puzzle that eventually you get all the pieces and you put it together. And as maybe at some point they actually used it, and at some point the scales were actually based upon that whole prayer. Now you just have historical remnants of the fact that ne sounds like it's just a little nonsense
Well, you see
thing.
that on some of the wheels.
Yeah, yep.
You see
The
the
wheels?
prayer on the wheels.
The scale,
The wheels?
scale wheels.
You like the Cuckoo's wheel or some of the
Well,
other?
let's stop there. There's a wheel that defines certain scales, and it was kind of used to teach things. It's kind of useless in English because everything's in Greek, and we don't understand how those things work very well. So it's useful, but it's one of those things that it's very far down the line. So, but yeah, St. John Kukuzelis was a big chanter and did a lot of the melismatic hymns back in, I think, the 14th century, was it? and so he was a big teacher of a lot of these things, and that's where some of these things came from. So, but then it's just part of a prayer, so take it as a reminder to pray. So,
Okay.
if you have somehow descended from that height, which is not difficult to do. So, let's sing the glory just on words, and then the the actual hymn, maybe we'll do a bunch of it on Paralegi
Alright.
with the note names. So,
He was from Debar.
ne,
Kukuzos.
Okay.
He was from Debar in Macedonia.
ne. So I'll just count 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go through the glory. Ne, glory to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit. And just to let you know, at least for you, Patricia,
Yeah.
on Saturday I may do a few other things in there.
As in,
Just ignore.
I'm probably let you do solo.
Yeah.
These,
No.
These intervals are, unless I get it in my brain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
See, I don't like to do these solo because they're long and I don't know. It's like a.
Well, if you don't mind me I can't throw you off. You're unthrowable. So.
You'll be fine. If you really feel uncomfortable, I'll sing it by myself unless
You know
Anna
me,
takes
I can't
it.
shut
so.
up.
So,
I'm one of those people. I
um,
just can't shut up. I keep singing even if I don't know it.
So the thing that I might do is and to the Holy Spirit, which is all there somewhere.
Yeah. And I'll hold the basic note and you
Yeah.
can go all over the
Okay.
place and
So
it'll work.
is the glory okay? Should we do it again? Or
Yeah,
is
one
that-
more time.
Okay.
Mhm.
Ne glory to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit. Alright, so now we go straight into soft chromatic, and the only reason we go into soft chromatic is that we go, let us acclaim, as opposed to, let us acclaim, which doesn't really make sense. So they switch scales just there so they can do what they want, and also the Greek does it. So
Yes. That's how they roll.
yeah. So I don't know if I'm just gonna say that and then let it lie. So note names.
Yeah.
So this will be the, and then when on acclaim we'll go back to pop. If that's okay.
Sorry, say it
again. It'll be the ga vu ga di ga pa zo.
And why is it D?
Soft chromatic, the scale chart.
Yeah.
That just means the in soft chromatic. It could mean other things, but it makes more sense to say the.
You're looking at the scale chart. That's by ni, vu, the, and zo.
Yeah. It wouldn't make any
So
sense
we're
to say zo. It wouldn't make any sense to say vu.
Well. Okay.
It wouldn't make any sense to say ni. I'll just stick with me here.
Right.
Stick
Yeah.
with me.
But what's left? I guess it's the.
Just say, just say the, and we'll all be good. In time, it'll make sense why. Eventually,
My fingers are wiggling.
Eventually, you might be like, well, of course we'd say the.
I hope so.
Yeah, now, just take it on. This is where, like, in
Right.
like quantum physics or something, it's like hand wavy. Just accept it for now, and eventually, it may make sense.
Senior Ariel,
Yeah, you'll pick. Put it
Good
together.
explanation.
Yeah. So the 1, 2, the ga vo vo ga the ga pa zo ke. 1 second, 1 second. Ke pa zo ke. The ga the ke zo ke. The ga vo ke. The. Let's do that one more time. The
Yeah, that's a good idea.
ga vo ke. Just to let you know, the only reason why I knew it was ke is because I saw that the is coming up, and so I went one up from
You
it.
backed up,
I
yeah.
backed up. So I'm not that good. But ga vo ga the ke up 3 ke the. Let's keep going for just to push through.
Okay.
The ga the vo ke the ga vo vo pa. What's our next note? We sang it on. We sang it on.
You did it already.
Yeah, we sang it on
You did
today.
Zo. Didn't you do the Zo?
Yep.
Okay.
Zo ke. What just happened?
Zo. Okay. I'm not sorry to get up there.
What just happened there though? On the
An hour diatonic.
diatonic. Okay, good.
Oh wait. I didn't. Oh.
Do you want me to sing what happens, or you want to just sing?
No,
what
I didn't see the thing. I'm too far away. Why don't we put it down?
You need like a
We're
red
all
pen.
trying to look from the
I
side.
need a red.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't see the little tiny.
Well, anyways, I won't spoil it.
Do you want me to sing it, or do you want to?
Sing it, please.
Okay, so it's that's our pa. Namely, the God bearing fathers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's that little flip again,
So we go back.
at the end.
No, we're back in the hardcore maps.
Yep.
Put that.
Okay, so.
Oh man, this sucks.
Jeff is suddenly grateful he won't be there Saturday.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's a good weekend to be in Philly.
Now this is the definition
Oh,
of
come
a
on, any
Doxasticon.
weekend is a good weekend to
Yeah.
be in Philly.
Particularly apparently.
You're talking with two Philly people.
Two Philly people.
Say water at some time when you're up there.
Water.
Just
Yes,
just,
water.
just to fit in. So namely, zo zo ke zo ni zo ke zo ni zo ke di ga di ke di ga vo pa pa. Okay, so that thing right there is you'll see all the time. So get used to that. Who in the midst of the church.
Seen something like that before, and I mean we haven't done Plagal Sacket too, so it's
Yeah.
That's where something similar shows up. Is it Plagal?
Plagal
first?
4 does almost similar things. They
Yeah.
a lot of them have
Yeah.
similarities.
I think on Pa too usually.
Yeah. So just keep that as one of those patterns.
Oh yeah, when you see that coming, it's like, oh thank God.
Yeah. And again, the pattern of all this music is very helpful over time. Sang. So this one again, word painting on sang. We extend sang for a little bit. Look at it for a second. Everything is half a beat.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh, but we've got a little dot after one of the gorgons.
yeah, and that's just for, well, I'll say
No,
it's
I
for
see.
orthographic reasons, and just for writing. just for writing
I
purposes.
mean, we've seen that a lot too. Na, 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 na.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Bless you.
Thank you.
And then theology should be somewhat similar at the end of that line. It's almost like what we just sang. So sang.
If you taught us to just memorize these little phrases.
Yep.
And that's the only way to make sense of them.
Yeah. No, I mean the phrases they're.
Yeah, but to memorize, you got to learn it at least once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sang a harmonious song. Let's start there.
Right here.
Vi ga ga vi ke vi ke zo ke vi ga vi ke There's another one of those patterns.
That was.
And let me just sing that sang a harmonious song real quick at tempo. So it's of the church sang a harmonious song. So that's the sang just bouncing all through.
Yeah.
Sang So, but that's over time. Let's go to teaching. That's the Trinity. What's our note on teach?
K. So it should be K.
I hear a K.
Going
K,
twice,
yeah.
going three.
I hear two Ks.
Two Ks.
Yes.
Double K.
All right.
I'm gonna overcome my Western seriousness.
There you
Because
go.
it's up 4,
Oh.
so that means it goes
Up with it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I battle with both of them,
That's
so it does work if you keep it straight. Cesar pa ke zo ke di ke zo ni pa ni zo zo ke vi ga ga vi ke zo ni zo ke vi. 1 second there.
Yeah.
He forgot to write in a symbol. I don't think he would ever go ke zo ni zo ke vi. I'll have to double check, but that doesn't make any sense. And that's just me. This is me telling you it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
And I'll double check to make
Does not
sure.
make sense.
But what it should be is on ident.
Mhm.
On ident, it should have the backwards. This guy. On ident, and then so this should be on den, and then on col should have the opposite one. So, and that's just because then we can do is one identical, and then back to hard chromatic. So we just go into diatonic for that little phrase. So.
And that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
It makes sense
Well,
if
it doesn't make sense to Jeff or
what
something.
what we're gonna do eventually, and this is up to your discretion. At some point, I'd like to bring in a text, different text for all three of you, and eventually for everyone. But say we're gonna compose. We're gonna separate it into little sections. Say where do you want it to go? Maybe look at a model hymn and kind of separate it, and then show you how I have composed hymns, how these hymns are composed, and how people back in the day composed them because they had all these memorized. They just knew this is how Byzantine music goes, and then over time people kind of categorized, oh, this is how these different composers kind of wrote things. In the same way, that if you, I think we talked about Bach at some point, but Bach wrote in a certain style, which now I get taught as 18th century counterpoint, which is essentially Bach. Bach did not follow necessarily rules that said, well, I can't do this because this breaks rules. Bach wrote in a certain way that was predictable and that was so methodical that people could say this is Bach style, and that eventually everyone did that, which is why it's 18th century counterpoint. So in the same way, there's certain ways of writing Byzantine music which everyone kind of follows, which is why we can then categorize them and say, okay, if you have this pattern of syllables, here's certain phrases that people throughout the ages have used. So then you can compose without having gone to school for 5 years to learn Byzantine music and chanted for years and years and years and heard it since from your youth up. To quote the hymns.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
I found a YouTube of Margaziotis, in which they go through literally every exercise with Hikaku.
Oh yeah. Well, the recordings are up on the Margaziotis PDF that we have as well.
Yeah, that's what I was really amazed.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's got a big voice too. The guy who does it.
Whoever it is.
Okay, so identical. That the Trinity. Let's see. Let's do teaching. Do you want to just keep going, or do you want to do that again?
Oh,
Identical, or just keep moving?
Okay, yeah. Essentially, we've changed it now.
Yeah.
That's something that makes more sense.
Let's do Trinity. So at the end of T is
At the end, okay.
Trinity. That's God. That's Paga. Vike, Gavo, pavo, ga, vike, gedi, gadi, gavo, pavo, pa. Did anyone see that on theology? Anyone see that on theology before? Anyone?
I'm sorry.
The same pattern? Anyone see that same pattern on theology?
No, that's why we got it.
Yep.
Exactly.
We recognize the pattern.
Yeah. So Pa, right from Godhead.
Yeah.
Viga, vigezo, God, vigezo, nizo, gedi, gadi, gadi, gedi, kezoni, kezozo, keke, zoni, panini, zoke, zoke, ke, vike, zoga, vike, zo, vike, zoni, zoke, gadi, gavo, pa, ni, pavo, gavo, pa. Went down a little bit.
Okay, just a few
I
changes.
love that too.
Yeah.
The diatonic
I
here.
missed at least
I can't
one.
see
There's
beyond
that
this.
door, but where's the
Oh.
other one?
We changed at some point, I think we're changing
I
back
know we
here.
changed back.
Oh, here's the diatonic right
Oh,
there.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
I
one.
saw that, and that's when I realized,
No, that's
oh.
the one I missed.
I missed
right
it.
there,
Just
because
move
it was
this.
underneath.
Well, I missed the earlier one when we
It was
changed back into
hiding
hard
underneath.
chromatic. So.
Because I can't see any of that.
Yeah.
You need the color coding.
The signs are so bad.
Okay,
It's
so
hard to see those
so if you
little
look,
paint
and
little-
this is tough. So
Mm.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys
So they appreciate
struggling
using loud enough so that
struggling
you
with.
know they have.
If you look at the last line of the first page that you have on Arius, the refuters of Arius.
Oh.
They are the refuters of Arius. And then look on the second
There's
line.
the flora.
Second line of the
Hmm.
second page. And they ever intercede with the Lord. Pretty much the same thing.
Where's that?
Second line of the second page.
Are we talking?
Okay.
Oh, right here, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, is it the third page?
Yes, the third
Yeah.
page.
It's
Oh,
the third
I'm sorry.
page, so I was
Okay, I was
trying to
kind
find
yeah.
it.
Yeah, second line of the third page. So two very similar phrases.
Mhm.
You know, slightly different
So it
syllables.
switches the diatonic just for those few syllables, then it's back to hard chromatic
Mhm.
again.
Yeah, and mostly because, and if you hear this, the so right, and they ever intercede. So if I were to sing it hard chromatic the entire way through, and they ever intercede with the Lord, which I've never heard anyone sing anywhere. It just is not a thing.
And you added another
Yeah.
Nickism right there.
Makes no sense.
So,
Yeah, you dumb jack.
intercede with the Lord. No, that would be so the difficulty that I run into is kind of funny because there are times when I have heard this.
Sung hard chromatic.
Hard chromatic the entire way through. The problem is that it's someone who wrote it probably in Western music with no knowledge of the actual tone, just knowing that tone 6 goes like this. And they were like, why when I go that da 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 da, I want to do that. So they write that in there because they think it sounds good, even though it's not
What you would
by any means in alignment with a whole, hundreds of years
corpus of
a whole body of musical literature that they would never write that.
But didn't Chrysanthos say that when you're descending, there's a tendency for the voice to go diatonic anyway?
In this context, maybe, I don't know. I'll have to read his thing. I wouldn't take. I would follow the scale markers, but
In other words, when you have something like this, in descending, you reduce this.
Oh, that's the attraction of notes. That's not necessarily diatonic, and that doesn't apply here.
It doesn't apply going down.
It applies when you're singing the diatonic scale. And that's why we go intercede with the Lord. That's why our zo changes. It shouldn't change like that, but there are studies, recent papers that have been done where somebody had a flute and they played it. All the notes were exactly the same, and they played it going up and going down. And he said, "What happened to zo?" And everyone said, "You flatted it." He was like, "I did nothing." He was like, "This is it's a recorder, I just play I just hold the notes." But everyone's ear pulled it down because of that attraction of notes that your ear wants it to be that way. So because acoustically you want it to be that way, the chanter articulates it that way.
And then we end up with all these little flori, or whatever you want to call them in the plural.
No, that's just word painting.
Yeah, the flattened zo, it's never even marked. You just know about it eventually.
Yeah, if it is marked, it's just because they want to make sure that you do it, but very seldomly will you see it. It's 8:03. I think that's probably a good place to stop. It's a lot.
So you're good, right?
I'm ready.
All right.
Yeah, bring it on, Nick.
All
Bring
right,
it on.
all right.
I want to
I'm there for you,
recording
man.
Went up looking at YouTube on Saturday night up in Philly.
We'll sing it again. So.
We'll broadcast it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a week to sing that through the entire week, so you're gonna hit it at some point again.
Right.
Wait, will you be in Greece for this?
Yes, actually. Well, yes, I will.
For this weekend?
Not this. I'm leaving Columbus.
Oh, you're gonna
Oh,
miss
that's
the
the-
Sunday of the Fathers.
I'll miss this.
Oh man, that's. I mean, they would do something
But
much
I'm
more complicated
going
than
for
this.
Feast day of Gerasimos.
Okay.
Gerasimos.
Oh, you get
On the
Erasmus.
20th.
He's got another
I may stay through
8-tone
Demetrius, but that's a
Doxasticon.
big feast.
Yeah.
Demetrius is the end of the month.
Oh.
So
Nice.
I don't think I'm gonna stay that long.
Yeah.
We'll look at that one.
It reminds me, who was it was there last Sunday?
Who?
There was
I mean,
There was a father, I never saw before.
It's gonna be
oh,
much more
this is
simple.
Stephanos.
Yes.
Who's from
And it's gonna be
Greece.
much more from the
He's from
beginning.
Greece.
And
Yeah,
But
because he
don't
was
get
one of
supposed to
adjusted
be
for me, I'm just,
very educated.
No, it will be
and
she
because
told me you also have some of these
theology
tapes on,
Chanted.
yeah, I have tons
Yeah.
of recordings up
No, he's
online.
Stephanos.
so I'll start
A native.
with all my
Yeah,
stuff
I
and
know.
into that maybe.
I didn't
Yeah,
hear
and then I
him.
gave her the Byzantine.
Does he chant?
Ecclesiastical
He stands
Well,
on the
no, I'm
altar.
not.
Oh, nice,
He
nice,
was standing
nice.
in the
Oh,
altar,
he's
but
got
he
a
did a
wonderful
lot of
voice.
the service.
He's a beautiful
And,
voice.
Are you
yeah,
staying around
that's
for
what I was
the
saying.
beginners or?
Yeah, I'll
He's
stick around
And
very
he
for
good.
it.
managed to
Okay.
do some of the
We had a
things that
Vespers
Father
at
Cross
St.
normally
Norman's.
would do.
Oh, really?
Right.
Father
does
always had
everything.
one of everybody chants in town.
Oh,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, at Father
Instead of
Cross's
the high voice.
communion,
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
like pushing people
And I
up to go
thought,
to
you know,
communion
I was
with
a
him
tonsured
because,
reader, and
you know,
it was about the only country where you could be a tonsured reader without being a tonsured chanter.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I need to learn all eight.
Well, because people don't know what to do.
properly.
They're going in all different lines.
well, no, I'm in the choir. He wanted
Oh.
the choir to go up to him.
Oh, that's nice.
You were,
Well, okay,
Alright.
we'll see you.
Alright, have a good trip.
you were
Thank you
probably
very
helping
much,
out
yeah.
the rest of the festival.
Safe flight.
Oh, I was at the festival.
Say a prayer for us chanters while you're in Greece.
Say it for us.
Festival party only went last night.
No, they do it on Erasmus Day. They do a big, beautiful Byzantine Vespers. And they have like all the chanters from different churches in Athens.
This one that-
So just to be there.
I'm gonna
is-
try to use it first.
Is this a fun trip?
No, it's not fun.
He's
It's
not
serious.
translating it.
It's,
It's a maintenance trip.
no, that's what I mean.
It's maintenance,
It's
but
a life
this, the
affirming.
fun part is just that part. Well, we'll see you.
I wish I had the entire
Well,
thing
see
in
you tomorrow.
English,
You're gonna be at the
but I
meeting?
haven't had time.
Oh, I'll be at the meeting.
So I apologize.
Okay, see you tomorrow then.
All right.
He's also with
Can
the
I have a new
Metro
cheat
DC
sheet?
Kent Orthodox.
Of what?
Missions and Outreach Committee.
Cheat sheet, just the cheat sheet.
I don't think I have an extra one with me. Of the scales. Sure.
That I have.
There you are. Oh, I should stop recording. I just